Welcome back to Scotty's Clock World. I upload new clock repair videos on Sunday and Wednesday mornings of every week. This is a Black Forest Cuckoo clock, made in South Germany of course. It has a 30-hour movement in it, which means it has to be wound every day. Nice dark wood. I like that. The pale walnut colour doesn't quite do it for me, but this is nice and dark. That's a chains rolled up there. Put that down for a moment. That's the topper, in pretty good shape, except that just the tip of the beak there has been rubbed or broken off. I'll smooth that down, the same as that last little bit on the wing there. I'll smooth them down and restain them before they go back on the clock. That's the pendulum, the original one, and these are the weights. Interestingly enough, they weigh 445 grams, and a 30-hour movement clock usually takes 275 grams. So we'll have to investigate that when we get further into the clock. You'll notice these are quite old weights. You can tell that by the fact they haven't got the weight stamped on them like modern weights. We'll count the number of links on the chain later on. It should be 61 links per foot for a 30-day movement. So we'll count that and see what that is, if that's correct or not. They're the hooks that hold the topper on. Undo the latch at the back. Move the back door. There's the gong. Put that aside. And there's the movement. It's definitely a 30-hour movement. You can see there's only 3 wheels on the drive side there. An older movement, 1950s or a bit prior to that. There's the count wheel. That bellow's pretty loose at the back there. We'll have to repaper those. And the high notes, not make a note. And the low note is sort of about a bit, but not much. A little bit of rust on the levers. Hammer seems to be alright. Alright, well, we'll start to take this to pieces. Lie that down. First thing we'll do is we'll remove the hands. Undo that knurl nut there. Take that off. Then there's a washer underneath that. Put my fingernails. Actually, yeah, that should just... I think that is screwed down. I'll check that out. Yes, it is. Alright. We remove that, take that off, put it aside with the rest of the hand pieces. That's the minute hand that comes off. Now the hour hand, held on by friction, I'll put my fingernails under it and just lift it up. There it is, it's come off. Alright, that looks alright. Put them aside, turn the movement over. Now, the next thing we do is we remove the bellows. Screwdriver. Slide the screwdriver in, twist it round, take the screw out, put it in the dish so we don't lose it. Lay the clock down. There'll be a small tack in there that holds the bellows in place. But before we do that, we're going to undo the wire link that goes down to the bottom of the bellows there, the bellow lift lever. I'll move that aside and see if I can get a bit tight. Put a screwdriver in it. That undid it. So now carefully slide a screwdriver down the side of the bellows, the high note, and lift it off. Not making a note. I think it might need a bit more weight on the top of it. It might actually work. Alright, we'll put that aside. Now, actually first up, I'll open up the lever that goes up to the bellows and the lift lever down there. Now, undo this screw. It's a new one, it's not original, but we'll undo it anyway. Take it out, slow the movement down again, and then very carefully, the screwdriver, we'll slip it underneath, and then a few tweezers might help. You lift. Actually, it'll be easier, I think, yep, to take it off the bellows there, and then to remove that lift wire from inside. Alright, well I'll leave that there for the moment. Wait till we take the movement out. This is a low note of the bellows. This one's loose at the back. You can see the pretty decent sized hole in there, so they'll have to be redone. This piece of wire here is the wire that lifts the back of the little bird, so it bobs its head up and down. And now we're about ready to take the movement out, but before we do, we'll take the chains out. First up, I'll take the hooks off that the weights are attached to. It'll make it a lot easier to be able to pull the chains through, because these are very tight on the case. I'll open this link up. Mind you, it's not very easy, but I will certainly do it. I'll get another pair of pliers and with serrated jaws to get a hold on the link, because it's slipping out of the other pliers. Then with the smooth jawed pliers, I'll bend the link up. That way I can remove the hook. That's the first one. Now the second one, then 2 pairs of pliers, serrated one on the left to hold the link tightly, and bend the other one back. You can then slide the hook out and then return the link to its original position. Now we should be able to pull the chains through easily enough. And there we go, chains are gone. Put them aside. Now we're going to take the movement out of the case. Tiny little screws, really small ones. They're very small screws. I suppose it's a light movement, so it doesn't need heavy screws. See if we can collect it with our magnet. Not quite. Oh, it needs a little bit more. It should be right this time. Not so. Alright, we'll try these locking scissors, see what we got. Well, I would have thought that that had come out completely. Obviously it hasn't. On to the next one. They are tiny little screws. Virtually impossible to see way down there. The slots in those need to be redone before they go in. Yeah, they're really poor quality. I'll see if I can get that out, but we'll definitely go over the slots. Right, what do we got up here in the top part? See what we got. Another 2 tiny little screws. Oh, that looks like fun. Alright, off we go. You'd reckon that should be out. It's only a tiny little screw. I think it's going to stay in there for the moment though. Right, we'll take the other side out. Well, that's loosened all the screws. Finally, now we can take the movement out. Make sure we don't get the pendulum leader caught. Oh, not good. I forgot to take the hook off the little bird on the front door. Alright, I've remedied that situation. Now we can take the movement out. Careful of the pendulum leader. Remove the case. And there's the movement. At the back of it, the count wheel, the lift levers for the bellows, there and there. I'll remove that, get that out of the road, thank you. The pendulum leader, the bird rod, there's our little bird. Turn it over to the front. And there we have it. That's the front of the movement. And of course the front of our little bird. How cool is that? Right, let's start to take the movement to pieces. We'll start off by removing the pendulum leader. 2 pairs of pliers. One to hold the hoops. The other one to undo it. Open it up just a little bit, not very much. That'll do. Now the bottom one. Grip on it with the pliers. Second set of pliers. Open the link. We go, now lifts out and comes out of the crutch down the bottom there. Once I open that up a tiny bit, as usual, 2 pairs of pliers. You never just sort of bend stuff falling down into the plate. Right. We've got that off now. Now we'll remove the bird perch. To do that, we undo that screw and that screw there. It's a bit tight. This tends to be the case on most clock parts. Let's cracked it. And the top one. Cracked it open. And before we go any further, we have a look and note the spring, which is there, goes through a hole in the bird perch there and then wraps round the count lever. So into that with a pair of pliers. Not a lot of room there. I'll try a pair of tweezers. Catch the wire. It's a bit narrow. Yep. Alright, we've undone that. Now we can continue undoing these screws. The first one, take it out, put it aside. Back to the second one. Pretty tight also. I'll get a slightly larger screwdriver. This is actually a little bit too big for this, but it will do the job. The other one's a tiny bit short or small. This one's a bit big. See if that's taken most of the tension out of it. Not really. Back to the larger one, wind it round, remove the screw, and there's our bird perch. Spring, rusty up the top here, as tends to be the case. We'll run over that with the Dremel and clean it up. Our little bird, we'll put a bit of cleaning fluid on that and get rid of some of the many years worth of dust on it. That'll clean him up and make him look a lot sharper. Before I take the little bird off, I'll get a marking pen and I'll mark where it goes, so I'll know where to put it back on approximately before I finally tighten it down. Screwdriver into the screw. Gotta be careful of the little bird. There we go, that's got it. Slides out. Screw's a bit rusty, we'll clean that up also before we put it back in again. Other than that, our little bird looks alright. Could do with a clean, which is going to get. Alright, it's a little bird out of the road. The bird post or roost, we'll clean that up. Now come back, have a look and see what we got here. They'll all come out easily enough once we've taken that off. Alright, take the cannon pipe off, this piece here. Lever seems to be working alright, it's lifting up nicely. That'll have to come out from there, alright. We'll take this taper pin out, push it from the other end. That's not what a tapered pin's supposed to look like when it's finished. We'll get a new one out. You can see that's just been hacked off. It hasn't been finished, hasn't been rounded off. And it looks pretty crappy. So we'll recut a new one of those. Take the washer off with our tweezers. Done. Cannon arbor comes off now. That aside for the moment. Take that off with our spring underneath it. We'll start off by removing this pendulum post here. It just screws in. Screw that out. As usual, got a bit of rust on it. We'll run over that with the Dremel. It's also got a bit of oil on. We'll clean it up. Now I'll take the count wheel off. Undo this screw here. Lift that off. A pair of tweezers might help. There we go. It's got that off. Now we can see more of the movement inside. All right. Now I'll get a spanner. We'll start taking 7's too big. Where's that 6 gone to? There we go. Loosen up the nuts. And we can take the top plate off. Spin it round. Get at the next one. A little bit tight, so we'll... And there's one up here at the top. Get rid of that one. Second one. Spin him round with your thumb. Third one. The fourth one's a little bit tight. Well, that's got him. All done. All the nuts are off now. Now, lift the top plate gently. And that pillar there is a bit, plate's a bit tight on that. That's better. Now we'll lift the top plate off. There we have it. Put that down for a moment. I'll put this wheel in where it belongs, which is over there. That's its pivot. Move that out of the road, might help a little bit. Now we can put it back in where it belongs. That sits there. Right, that's the internal workings of the clock. We'll have a look at the front plate. We've got the hammer here, a little bit of rust on it naturally. We'll have to clean that up with the Dremel. Take the crutch and the pallets out. Fair bit of oil on that, top of that. And rusty. We'll run over that with the Dremel and the crutch down there. Look at the glistening there, that's oil. Loose oil lying around everywhere. To take the hammer out, we pull that spring out from under there over the top and then roll the hammer around to those couple of posts, come up the top, and it just slides out. That pillar's bent a little bit, I think. That's why it's not just sliding out. I'll straighten that up a tiny little bit, and that may well solve the problem. Very carefully so I don't snap it off. That looks like it should come down a little bit more yet. I think it has to. Pair of pliers and see if that will solve the problem. And it does. We'll run over that with the Dremel, clean that up. We'll run over that with the Dremel, we'll clean that up. It's a bit rusty. Now the low note should just slide straight out. We'll see whether it does or not. Oh, it's bent a little bit too. Right, well, get our pliers out again and straighten that up a tiny bit. One. Still not quite. Right, a little bit more. Always a bit nervous bending bits of wire and stuff. They may well snap off. Now the next one. See how we go with this. That one. And good grief. That is seriously bent. That's right, I'll have to do that one off camera. It's going to require 2 hands to pull that one out. Alright, back soon. That got him out. But we'll clean those up with a Dremel and put them aside, and then we'll get the parts ready to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. Right, we're now going to get the parts ready to put into the ultrasonic cleaner. So we'll start tying some of them up together. I'll cut some wire so that we can put associated parts together. It's a little bit short for that. Alright, we'll put that over there. I'll cut a longer one. This is the motion works we're going to put on this piece of wire here. It should be heaps, probably too long, but anyway. Put the minute wheel on. And we'll put on that great wheel. We'll keep them all together. And that, no, we won't put that spring on. Right, tie them up together, keep them in one piece. I'll trim the extra ends off, drop them in there. The ultrasonic cleaner is heating up to 30 degrees, which is the temperature we want to be able to properly clean the parts. That's still on the back plate, that can go there, alright. Now, strike side train, we'll put those parts on here. And the fly, it's got a hole in there, that's not a problem, that'll fit on nicely. Warning wheel and the fly go on there, not too bad, twist that round. Now, another little bit of wire. We'll put our going side train wheels on. Get him off, bend him over. And the escape wheel, which looks pretty grubby actually. Okay. Cut the excess bits off again. And down there. I'll throw them out later on. Yep, it's all gone. Now, one of our excellent little tea strainers. We'll put the nuts in. The 4 nuts that will hold the plates together. Now, let me just check those and see. Nope. Nothing in there. Right. Put the cap on that. That's done up. We'll see what's in here. Our little bird, of course. See if there's anything brass in here that we can put into the cleanup. No. Little bit of Dremel action on that lot, and probably another 1 or 2 in there. Alright, well they're all ready to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll put them in. We'll run it for 5 minutes, 30 degrees. Then I'll take the parts out. We'll come back and look at them. Then we'll move on to the next step. The parts have all returned from the ultrasonic cleaner now. They're all looking pretty good actually, including the escape wheel, which looks pretty crappy before. But it's not looking too bad now. Motion Works parts. I'll take them apart, cut the wires out, put them back into our foam block, and then we'll get on to the next part of the operation, which is pegging out the bushes and seeing if we have to do any work on those. We normally don't have to do work on rebushing Cuckoo clocks unless they're really, really bad, which tends not to be the case. Put that aside. But in the meantime, take that off. Going side train. Talking of Cuckoo clocks, that's the chalet clock running in the background. Count wheel looking rather nice. And the plates have come up rather well too actually. So, alright, we'll move on to the next step now, and I'll sharpen this piece of pegwood and we'll peg out the, well, not actually the bushings, the holes. They're actually holes that have been punched into the back plate and the front plate. They're not bushed as per such, but we'll clean them out anyway to make sure there's no gunk left in them after they've been through the ultrasonic cleaner. This is the piece of pegwood that we'll use. I'll sharpen it with my new folding utility knife that I got just only a few days ago. This is an excellent little knife. Very, very good. I've been using one-side razor blades for a long time, but they tend to get a bit hard to hold in your hand like that, whereas with a handle you've got complete control over what's happening. I think it was only about 20 bucks, I think, here in Australia, so that's not too bad. Right, we'll start off with this plate. Adjust the camera a bit. I'll start off with the back of it. Nice sharp point on our pegwood. We just push it into each hole in the back plate, spin it round, take it out, have a look and see if there's any black marks on it yet. No, they look alright. Do the next one. We just methodically work up the plate and then down on the other side, checking each hole where one of the wheel pivots will go. A little bit of discoloration, not very much. Not much hope there. Right, turn it over, do the other side. No good doing one side, we have to do both sides of each plate. Put the pegwood in, spin it round, check it occasionally to see what it's like, and then work our way down the plate. Come out rather well actually. Right, we'll grab the other plate, do the same thing, run over all the holes where the pivots sit. No, still no serious marks on it, so the ultrasonic cleaner's done a pretty good job. One down there and up there, and this one here where the post that holds the pendulum leader goes. Those two there are the Cuckoo bellows lever. Yeah, they all seem to be pretty good. Right, now we've got some more work to do. I notice we've got one or two wires that will need a little bit of work with the Dremel tool. A little bit across there. So we'll do those next. Clean them up. And then after we've done that, that seriously, it looks like it's in need of a bit of work, doesn't it? I've cleaned up the top of the bellows. It's cleaned up now, so we'll repaper that and get that one working. The other bellows is working all right. Put that back over there with the door. Put that back. So we'll do a little bit of Dremel work now. We've got our Dremel tool connected now. I put a little bit of paper down here because we're going to start shedding a little bit of rust and dirt, etc., that we don't want to get onto our bench. We'll start running over these parts now with our Dremel. Turn it up on about half speed. We don't want it to be too high. And just run it backwards and forwards over the pieces that need to be cleaned. That didn't need much. And this wire here needs a little bit of attention. Now on there. So we'll run over with our Dremel. Very easy, very quick. Don't need to overdo it, it doesn't take very much. See how that's nice and shiny now? That steel's alright. What else have we got? The bird lever. Bird perch, nope, that's okay. A little bit here, not much. We'll just quick run over on it. It's in pretty good nick, this clock movement. There's not very much wrong with that, and we've got to redo our bellows in a moment. That doesn't look too bad actually. Alright, what else have we got? Hammer lever. Nope. Right, well that was that. Not much work for the Dremel there. Alright. Yeah, little bird's alright, the wire's on that. Yep, not a problem. Okay. Right, we're ready to start work on our bellows. Works alright once we blow through it. However, I did notice earlier on, before I took it to pieces, that the bellows weren't dropping very quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 5-cent piece in there, which will help them to drop just a little bit faster. So I'll do that after we've put the Tyvek paper on, and the covers for the top of the bellows that I have got in stock aren't quite big enough. So what we'll do, we'll cut a piece of different coloured paper and put it over the top, and then on the post down here I'll put the same colour material on it so that they match. Alright, we'll put that aside, and we don't want the 5-cent piece for a moment. Right, now what we've got to do is find out how much Tyvek paper we need and in what size. So we'll start off by measuring the long side to 55, make a note of that, 55 mil. Going across the back, 30 mil. We'll jot that down on our piece of paper. Obviously 30 for the front and 55 for the side. What do you know, we're right. Alright, so that is 110 plus 60, which is 170. So the total length that we're looking at is 170, but that's a little bit extra because we're going to put a hinge of 30 mil on the back. So that's our hinge. We'll cut that first. And we've got some leftover paper from previous cuts here. So I'll measure that, measure 30 on that, That's the same as it was last time. I'll cut that with my new super duper knife, making sure I don't cut through too many layers. Nope, still a little bit tight. Right, I'm going to cut into my new bench top, so I'll trim it off with a pair of scissors. And we're going to need a height of 12 millimeters. So we'll measure this, see what we got. So for two of them, we want 24. We've got 22, and that'll be quite close enough. So we want 11 mil down there. Spin him round. Mark a line with our mechanical pencil and our rule down there. Cut that with a pair of scissors. Down our line. And that's our hinge that will go there on the bellows. Right, put our measuring tools aside. Now what I'm going to do for a change this time, I normally use contact adhesive, but it's pretty hard to work with, and you're forever cleaning your tools so that they don't stick. So what I'm going to do this time, see if it works or how well it works, I'm going to use some Tarzan's Grip general purpose glue, which I'll spread some on here, and then I'll go over. I think we've got enough there. Yeah, that a little bit more down the bottom, I think. Tiny bit there, and down there and across there. All right, now where's our hinge? Hinge we'll put on there. We'll use the other end to level out the hinge. The dry end of the Q-tip seems to have held down all right. Right, we'll leave that for 30 seconds and let that dry off. I'll throw the Q-tip out. We won't be able to use that again. So while we're waiting for that, we'll look and see. No, that material's going to end up being hinges. So we now need to go up to this piece here. We want 170 mil. Some of that will trim off because that'll double up on the back of the hinge. 150 and another 20. That's 170 mil there. Mark that position by ruling a line across there. Right, see how our hinge is going. It's drying all right. Now we need to measure how far the bellows open. So I'll grab this other one, measure and see how wide it is and how much extra we need. 40 mil. So we'll come down 40 mils on our piece of Tyvek paper, which is there. Mark it with a mechanical pencil. Come back over here again. 40 mil. Another one there. I'll mark one in the middle because this is only a bit more lead, I think. There we go. Now draw a line down there. And that doesn't come out very well on this, but we don't want to use a gel pen because it'll mark the bellows paper when it sinks into it. Right, I'll cut that with a pair of scissors down our 170 mil length. Now we've got another measurement here. There we go. So we'll cut that piece off there that is too long for us, and that'll become hinges on other clocks. Yep, it's looking right. Now we've got to find the midpoint of our Tyvek paper here, 170, which will be 85. Should be there. Double it over, just check it out. Make sure we're correct. Yep. Right. So that is the centre of our material. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach the front. So we have to, what do we say, 30 I think it was. Yep. We'll come in 15 mil either side. One there, and that will show us where the top of our bellows will go when we open it up to stick the paper on it. So that is where that's going to stick. Then we'll roll the sides up. Right, we'll give that another minute. Seems to be all right, but there's not a lot of it on there. It'd be nice to have a bit more support on, so we'll let that sit for a minute. Then we'll come back and put some more Tyvek paper on it. Test running a standard 2-inch movement that I've just made some repairs on. It's a pin pallet movement. You can't see the pins, but they're down in there anyway. It's a pin pallet movement, standard 2-inch movement. You can see the balance wheel working nice and smoothly. That's how they're supposed to look when they're working. All right, put that aside. Now we're ready for our next step, which is putting our bellows over like so, and then rolling the sides of the Tyvek paper over. All right, well, I'll start off. I'll put some glue on the front of the bellows there. Level it down, the Q-tip, and then put some on the other half here. Smooth it down, make it relatively equal all the way across on the end tip there. Right, now we saw before, that's the centre point of our Tyvek paper. We've got to put the bellows between there and there, and there and there. So we'll hold them open, align them on the paper. Once we've got them aligned, press them down and hold them there for a minute so that the glue takes. Lift it up, see what we've got. Yeah, that's looking all right. I'll just press those down a little bit. The top bellow is moved marginally, not very much, but just enough to, there we go. Right, we'll let those sit for a minute or so, let the glue dry before we start doing the sides of the bellows. Gluing both those sides and then wrapping the paper over the top of it. Being careful not to move the paper that's sitting on the front there. Lucky I got huge numbers of Q-tips. I used to sell them once on an online store I had, and I've probably got about 100,000 of them that I've saved to use on clocks. They're very handy for cleaning movements, etc. Right, first bit of glue along there. We'll level that out, make sure it's got a constant coverage all the way along. Up into that corner. Then down the other side. And a bit more down there. Right, see how that goes. Smooth it out once again. I'll be interested to see how this Tarzan's glue works in the overall scheme of things. Alright, now fold the Tyvek paper over. Flatten it out. Use the other end of our Q-tip, smooth it down along the full length, then turn it over. Now do the same for the other side, except what I'll do here is I'll put a little nick in there, make sure it fits. Yep, because that was very hard to get out that little hook on there that the bellows lever sits on. Alright, level out our glue again. Now up the other side and over the top there, glue down, smooth things out, and that line there is where the other hook goes when we get that far along. Okay, smooth out the paper. I'll move that nick down a tiny little bit, I think. Another Q-tip. And in under there. Oh, it's what's not quite long enough. I don't want to go too long and overcut it, but it needs a tiny bit more. That's done it, all right. Now, get all this smoothed down, both sides. It's all right there, and that one. Heading down to the back, now we'll see how much overlap we've got. No, we're going to be about right actually. I'll cut a little nick in there and one in there to make it a bit easier for us. Now put some glue on top of our hinge. We don't want to become unhinged, that'll be no good. Okay, level that out. Bend our paper down over. Make sure we've got the dry end of our Q-tip and push it down so that it fits. Alright, now what we're going to do now, before too much time, is we've got to put the dint into the bellows. So I'll use my rule for that, not using the sharp end, we don't want to nick it. We'll just press down into the bellows there, hold it, come around the other side, and then we'll press the front in, like so. That one, and then that, and then press it down. Alright, that's got that. I'll put a rubber band on that for a moment, just to hold it while it dries. Like so. Then once that's dried, we'll give that a couple of minutes. We'll then come back, we'll trim off all the excess. We're now ready to cut the excess paper off the bellows and trim it down. But just before we do, in case you're wondering what channel you're watching, there it is there, written on the t-shirt. Alright, back to work, promotion's over. We'll start off by using some scissors, clean that up, to trim off the largely excess paper, and then we'll trim off the other with our sharp razor blade tool. piece up there. Looking a bit thinner already. And then that one down there, which isn't going to be quite so easy to get actually. I think the majority of that will come off with a razor blade. Yep, looks like it. Bit more. Tyvek paper is pretty tough stuff. Doesn't let go in a hurry. Alright, move that aside. Get our super duper new knife out. We'll have a look and see where we reckon we will trim this to. Okay, nice sharp blade. We'll run that across there, trying not to amputate a finger or a thumb at the same time. Tiny bit more. See, glue seems to be working pretty well. Alright, that's that bit. Now across the back. I think that's a broad pair of tweezers. Up round there a tiny bit. A little bit left down there. I'll give that another cut. Glue seems to be working pretty damn well. Says he having trouble trying to get the pieces off. Okay, down the next side now. We don't want to cut into our rubber band, so we'll cut it this way. Down along there. And a tiny bit more there. It's being a bit hard to get on with there, so we'll take that off. And that piece from the corner. Bearing in mind these are super duper sharp razor blades. We don't want to go removing pieces of fingers and thumbs on the way. Alright, well, I'll have to take the rubber band off in a moment. I'll just cut above the pipe here where the whistle part is. Give that another run. Okay, now along the edge here, I'll take the rubber band off. Working right. Now, bit of excess here. And back to the other side. We'll remove that. In the corner. And that little bit off there. Alright. There we go. I'll make a few final adjustments to that and clean it up a little bit. Then we'll be ready to put the 5-cent piece in and the cap on. Right, we're ready to move on to the next step now. All the parts have been through the ultrasonic cleaner, and we used a piece of pegwood to clean out these holes here. in the plate. They're not bushes, they're holes that have been drilled into the plate when it has been made. These bushes, they're holes. Right, now we're going to check how the pivots fit. So start putting the movement parts in. The great wheel. Now we'll put the first wheel in. Now the escape wheel, the lantern pinion on the escape wheel, that piece there goes up because it's driven by the teeth on the first wheel. Put that back in there. Right, turn that round a bit. Goes there. Second wheel, third wheel goes there. And then the little fly goes right up at the top of the train. There we go. So we've got that set up now. Now we'll put the top plate on and then we'll seat all the pivots into their relevant holes and see how much movement there is in them. Posts there can go down a little bit. I'll put a nut on this post here to hold it in place. Won't tie it down tightly, just a little bit to hold it. Check the other side, do the same thing. Another nut on that post, 3/4 or half a turn. That'll hold it in place. Now we can look at getting the pivots aligned. The fly's fallen out, it's a bit loose, so we'll put that in a moment. Turn it round, look at the other side. Where's our pivot pusher? Around that way, pull it round. Bring it back towards the hole it's supposed to be in. I think that clicked in then. These pillars are a bit... I'll put a nut on that pillar there to hold it. And this guy up here seems to be bent out of whack a bit. And that's sort of getting it there. Right, we'll go back to putting the pivots in again. It's just about there, but not quite. Great wheels are right. Now, it's got that one there. The second wheel up a tiny little bit. That's got him. Tighten that down a little bit. I'll put the fly in a moment once we get this other side sorted out. I think that's about... That post is being a bit of a pain actually. Got that. First wheel, now we get the escape wheel in. Open the plate up a tiny bit and slide that down. Oh, leg's fallen off, Alright, that's got that sorted. I had to move the legs. I had to reposition the legs and put them on the move. They were wobbling around too much where they were. I've put the fly in, as you can see there. We've now got both the trains in position. Time train running and the strike train running. Right, now we'll check and see how loose the pivots are in each of these holes. I use a pair of tweezers so I can move them back and forwards and make it a bit easier to see. A little bit of movement in there. Not very much on the escape wheel. Oh, just torn a glove, good. Have to replace that. I'll have a look in here. They're not too bad considering the age of the clock. They've been running for a long period of time. It's not very often that you have to replace or put bushings into a Cuckoo clock. That actually doesn't look too bad. It's not worthwhile rebushing any of those. They certainly all run pretty freely. Little bit of movement there on the first wheel. T1, little bit of movement there, but not worthwhile worrying about, I don't think. Alright, well, what I'll do now is I'll oil those parts. I'll put a drop of oil on each of those pivots, because once we get the motion works on, it's not going to be quite so easy to get at them. So I'll oil them before we put the motion works parts on. I also noticed while we were putting the wheels in, there's some pretty serious rust on some of those parts. So I'll get at them with a Dremel, clean them up with a Dremel before we put them in. Actually, I'll do that before I oil the movement. Then once it's oiled, we'll then put the rest of the parts on the movement. I've removed what rust I can from the arbors and the pinions. Didn't get a lot off, but it's looking better than it was. So we're ready to do the oiling now. I'll start off with the back of the movement. We'll put a drop of oil on each of the pivots that are there. I'll put 2 on that because that's the great wheel. 1 on T1. First wheel on the time side, turn the movement round, back to the great wheel. First wheel on the strike side, S1. Second wheel on the strike side, S2. Turn the movement over, be freestanding now, so it'll be alright. Now, back again. Great wheel, T1, T2, great wheel under that pinion. I'll put 2 on there. First wheel, S1, S2, dot of oil on that. The warning wheel, and S3 the fly. Okay, lid back on the oil. Oil it back into its block. Clean up the oiler so there's no oil running out of it. We'll put it aside. Now I'll take up the movement, distribute the oil a little bit. We'll just spin the trains round. Time train first. Spinning nice and smoothly. Now the strike train, same thing. That'll help distribute the oil down the pivot. They're running quite smoothly. Right, that's got the lift levers in. Now we'll put the hammer in, which goes there. Those 2 pins down inside it. There it goes. And we've got a spring down here. Hard to see, but it has to go over that little pin there that's not much easier to see. So I'll twist that down under it. Then get a pair of pliers and close it up. Alright, let's see what we got. Left lever's lifting. That seems to be that for the moment. Now, we now have to turn the movement upside down. I'll take the pins off and reverse them, and then we'll come in and we'll start setting up the other side of the movement. Wind this piece in. Tighten it down with a smooth jaw pair of pliers. There we go. Now we'll put our tension washer on, then our minute wheel over the top. There we go. Then a washer on that. In actual fact, we're going to have to make a tapered pin to fit on that, because the one that was on there was absolutely shocking and I threw it out. Right, we'll come back to that in a moment. This is the motion works we're putting on now. That's the hour wheel, that's the cannon pipe, simply because in the days when they started making these things, it looked like the barrel of a cannon. Alright, well that's fitted on there neatly. Now we'll have to make a taper pin. I'll put the washer back over that. Now we'll have to make a taper pin to go in there. So that's what we'll do now. I've made a new tapered pin, so I'll put it in to the hole here once we see which direction it is. A very small one, so we don't want to drop it. It goes in there. Now we'll push it home. Most of you will know by now how to set up a taper pin, so I didn't bother showing it once again. Those who don't know how, I'll leave a link in the comments section below. Then you'll learn how to do it properly. Alright, that's set up. Now, once again, we've got to flip the movement over so we can put the count wheel on. Takes a bit of time setting up these legs and things, but at least we know that it's a stable platform to work on. Last one. Right. Now a count wheel, which is that piece there. And it goes, and that screw drops in right on top of that, so use a pair of tweezers to put that in. It'll be a bit easier, and we'll screw that down. Not too tight, but tight enough to hold it in place. Alright, there it is. So we're starting to get the movement together now. They all seem to be alright. Now the next thing to do is to put the little bird's perch on. Cuckoo clock movements are rather hard to make a wooden box to work on them. So here's our bird perch. And we want, what have we got in here? That's the rest of that. I'll tip those out. Now, that brass one there goes there. So I would think that that is probably the screw that goes into there. We're about to find out anyway. That there. Hold it in place. Grab a screwdriver. And it falls out. So that was an excellent start. Are they the same? Yeah, they look the same size. See if that one will fit in there. Yep, that fits alright. Just getting a start on it that's the problem. Okay, I'll get my screw-grabbing screwdriver. Put it into there. And then holding that in place. There we go, that's got him. Almost, I'll tighten that down now. Pretty much I'll leave that a little bit loose because we'll have to put the top one in a moment, and then we'll have to fit the bird perch in. Right, so how is that? I have a feeling that's the top one. Yes, well done, sir. Wrong connector on it. Put it back onto our screw holding screwdriver again. This time we'll put the correct one on. There we go. Because we'll have to align that up there. Now the second one, which was the first one we put on, which wasn't correct, goes around there. Bird perch drops into there. And we'll worry about the spring in a moment. But in the meantime, we'll get our screw grabbing screwdriver. Align that brass plate again. And okay. Back into place again. Align our hole up at the top, which is there. And that should now hopefully go straight in. Yep, finally. Back to our normal screwdriver, blade screwdriver. That bottom, that's about right angles there. Tighten that one down. Now I've linked our spring wire over the plate there, so that little bird lift lever springs backwards and forwards. Right, we're getting there finally. What we've got to do now is put that pin on for the pendulum leader, and we'll do that. Right. Now this is a piece that we're going to put in now. Goes in up there and screws in. Turn him round. And that's as far as it goes. Now the pendulum leader, this piece here, goes in next. First up we'll put those two loops through the bottom of that post and tighten them up with a pair of pliers. First one. A pair of longer nose pliers might be the go. Into there. Now the pendulum leader also has to go into the bottom of the crutch, which is this piece here. So I'll turn that up the other way. So we've got gravity working for us. You can see it's holding it there. And I'll close the crutch up. Bottom one wasn't quite tight enough apparently. Decided to come undone. Yep, that looks better. Okay, there's our pendulum leader working. You can see the escape wheel turning while I'm moving the crutch and the pendulum leader backwards and forwards. All right. Well, we're ready to start putting the movement back into the case now. That's our movement there. It's been oiled. We'll put that aside for the moment. I've cleaned up the chains, running them through some scourer pad, pulled them through there a couple of times. They've come up cleaner. So they're ready to roll. I'd run over the hooks and the rings with a Dremel tool and clean the rust off them. The bellows have been repapered, the high note and the low note. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put the chains onto the great wheel. We better find an end of it, I suppose. Here we go. First up, we'll check which direction we're going in. Where's our pendulum? It's running that way. So that's the direction the clutch is working in. So we'll drop the chain in a little bit over the top of that. Straighten the movement up and roll that clutch round and see if it'll drop the chain out for us. And there it is. You see the chain coming out. Right, what we've got to do now is put the rest of the chain down in under that post there. Pull that through. Make sure that the chain's sitting properly on the great wheel. Pull it through a tiny bit more. Yes, that's all right. Now over to the other side. See which way rolls that way. So get our chain, find the end of it, drop it down into the movement, roll it back, and then don't get caught up in that. The original chain, get that out of the road, got over there, and then start turning the clutch a little bit. Turn the movement over. No, we haven't got any chain coming through yet. Should be getting close though. There we have it, hanging out the side there. There it is. So what we've got to do now is bring that back. Might have to use, oh no, we might get away with it. On the other hand, we won't. Okay. We can get a thing a bit hard to get on with actually. So now, turn that and there we go. It's our second chain running through. Right, so both the chains have been set up correctly now. I'll bring the other length of that up, leave it there so we don't get them twisted up. And that's that one, and that is that one. Pull it through a little bit more. Okay, now we'll take the legs off the movement. We're now ready to put the movement back into the case. Right, we'll start putting the movement back into the case. That involves dropping the chains in through the holes. I'll put that in there for the moment. Using a pair of tweezers, I'll catch that chain, pull him out through the hole. There we go. First one. The other half of that chain, get the end of it, hang it over the side of the case. A pair of tweezers again. Catch the chain and pull it through. Right, that's the first lot. Now, time side train, same trick again, pair of tweezers, capture the chain, pull it out through the hole, and then the long length. Comes out there. Now I can align the movement properly. Just check and make sure that the great wheels are working properly and the chains are still on. That one's come off, all right. I think it's come off on that side.